Garden of Letters. Chapter 1, A Bloom in Silence. In a quiet village nestled between green hills and sleepy rivers, lived a girl named Alara. She was a gardener, known for growing the most vibrant roses anyone had ever seen. Her small cottage was wrapped in ivy, and every morning, she could be found in her garden, tending to her blooms in silence. Not far from Alara's home was an old post office, long since closed. It had become something of a relic, abandoned, dusty, and forgotten. But for some reason, Alara visited it every Sunday. She would slip an envelope into the rusted mailbox. No stamp. No address. Just a name, Julian. No one knew who Julian was. No one ever saw her send or receive a reply. But the letters kept coming. Chapter 2, The Letters Return. One spring morning, Alara found something that made her hands tremble, an envelope resting on the stone bench in her garden. It was addressed to Alara. Inside was a short note. Your roses bloom even in silence. I see them from afar. Keep writing. J. Alara's heart raced. She had written those letters not to be read, but as a way to pour her feelings into the world, her hopes, her heartbreaks, her dreams. She thought they vanished into nothing. But someone had been reading. Chapter 3, A Past Remembered. Years ago, before the village became quiet, Alara had known a boy named Julian. He was a traveler's son, full of stories and sketches, always sketching the garden behind her house. One day, he left with a promise, I'll return when the roses bloom redder than ever. But he never came back. Or so she thought. The letters continued. Each one revealed pieces of the world Julian had seen, markets in Morocco, the auroras in Iceland, the lonely train rides across Russia. But in every letter, he spoke of her roses. Chapter 4, A Whisper in the Wind. One stormy night, Alara found herself standing by the mailbox once more. The wind tugged at her coat, and rain splashed onto her skin. She placed her final letter inside, whispering, Come home. The next morning, her garden was filled with sun. And in the middle of it stood a man, older, taller, but with the same sketchbook in his hand. Julian. I read every letter, he said softly. And I wrote back. I just didn't know if you were still listening. She stepped closer, eyes wide, heart pounding. I never stopped. Chapter 5, The Garden of Letters. Julian never left again. Together, they rebuilt the old post office into a library of letters, a place where people could write and receive stories from the heart. Alara's garden became a haven for lovers, wanderers, and dreamers. Every spring, when the roses bloomed redder than ever, people came to read the letters they left behind. And in the middle of it all, Alara and Julian walked hand in hand, living proof that even the quietest hearts could speak across distance and time. Whispers of the Winter Wind. Chapter 1, The First Snow. Evelyn Hart was a quiet woman with a heart full of stories and a gaze that always searched the horizon. She lived in a small mountain town in Vermont, where winters painted everything in soft whites and silvers. Her days were filled with books, warm cups of tea, and the occasional visit from the townspeople to her little bookstore, the Lantern Light. One snowy afternoon, as flakes danced gently outside, a tall stranger entered her store. He wore a dark green coat, his hair slightly damp from the snow, and his eyes held a kind of storm Evelyn hadn't seen in years. I'm looking for a book, he said, his voice low and calm. Something about healing, or maybe forgetting. Evelyn tilted her head, intrigued. Sometimes, they're the same story. He smiled faintly. Then I suppose I'll take both. He introduced himself as Thomas Blake. A writer who had lost his words, a man trying to escape a city that had become too loud, too full of memories. Chapter 2, Wounds and Words. Thomas kept coming back. not just to the bookstore, but to Evelyn. At first, he claimed it was for the books. But soon, it was for the silence she gave him, the warmth of her company, the way she listened not to his words, but the spaces between them. Evelyn had her own ghosts, a fiancé who never returned from war, a heart that had learned to live with echoes. But in Thomas, she saw something different. Not someone to fix her, but someone who understood why some people stopped asking to be fixed. They shared long walks in the snow-covered forest, evenings beside the fireplace reading poetry, and laughter that came slowly, like thawing ice. Chapter 3, The Letter. Spring crept into town with green promises. Flowers bloomed, and so did something between them. Yet neither dared name it. One morning, Evelyn found a letter on the counter. It was from Thomas. In it, he told her he had found his words again, because of her. But he needed to go back to the city, to face the past, to finish the book he had abandoned. If this is goodbye, he wrote, know that you were the turning point in my story. But if you ever wish to find me, follow the words. She cried that night. Not out of loss, but because she knew love was real again. Chapter 4. The book. Months passed. Summer arrived with sun and loneliness. But one day, a package came. Inside was a book, Whispers of the Winter Wind by Thomas Blake. The dedication read, for the woman who taught me that silence has a soul, and that some love stories begin after the last page. Evelyn closed the bookstore early that day. Chapter 5, Reunion. Autumn brought color to the trees. Evelyn packed a bag and followed the only clue he left, the words. The publisher's address led her to New York, to a quiet street where an old library had been converted into a writer's co-op. He was there, older, more peaceful. The moment he saw her, the world paused. No words were needed. She walked into his arms, and he held her like he had been waiting forever. Epilogue, always, in every season. They moved back to Vermont together. The bookstore thrived. So did their love. On quiet nights, Thomas would read to her, and Evelyn would smile, because some stories aren't just written. They're lived.